Hello PEI, welcome to the show. Today we are taking a really deep dive into something super important if you're thinking about moving here, or maybe just buying a different spot on this beautiful island.
We're navigating the PEI real estate market.
That's right. And it really is a market unlike many others, isn't it? It's shaped by, well, the unique character of PEI itself, which means there are definitely specific things every buyer absolutely needs to get their head around.
And we're really fortunate today because our deep dive is built on some incredibly valuable, comprehensive insights. They've been compiled by Mike Montague of RE/MAX Charlottetown. He's given us a fantastic base of knowledge to work from.
So our mission today, using Mike's insights as sort of our roadmap, is to cut through that complexity, and pull out the essential stuff you need to feel confident buying a home here.
Yeah, because let's be real, people aren't just moving to PEI for the housing market. They're coming for that incredible lifestyle, the stunning natural beauty, those red shores, the green fields, everything, and that real sense of community you feel here.
And what's fascinating is how that desirability, that love for the island's character, it directly feeds into the rules and the things you need to think about when you're trying to buy property.
Exactly. It's a market that's deeply tied to, well, protecting what makes PEI special.
Okay, so let's really get into it then. Mike's insights break down what he sees as the top 10 crucial things every PEI home buyer needs to know. And kicking us off, point one is maybe the most uniquely PEI thing of all.
Understanding the Island Regulatory and Appeals Commission, or, what everyone just calls IRAC.
IRAC. Okay,
Yeah.
It sounds official, and it is, but its role in real estate here seems absolutely fundamental.
Oh, it is. It's essentially the gatekeeper for land ownership. It all stems from something called the Lands Protection Act.
Right, the Lands Protection Act.
And the core idea behind that act, it's pretty straightforward, but vital for an island like ours. It's about protecting PEI's limited land base, making sure its ownership and how it's used aligns with the island's best interests.
Okay, so that's the principle. How does it actually, affect a buyer? What are the specifics?
Right, this is where it gets practical. For individuals, if the property you're eyeing is bigger than 5 acres, or, and this is key, if it has more than 165 feet of shorefront, that purchase needs IRAC approval.
5 acres or 165 feet of shorefront.
And another piece of the IRAC puzzle, if you do need approval, is a 90-day marketing period. The property has to be actively marketed to islanders for 90 days before an offer from a non-resident meeting that IRAC nod can really be, well, properly considered.
90 days. Okay, that adds a significant time factor.
It can, yeah. And there's an application process, too, with fees. If you're a non-resident buyer needing approval, the fee is currently $550 or 1% of the purchase price, whichever is greater.
Okay, so the big takeaway seems to be you absolutely need a PEI-savvy realtor, someone who really knows these IRAC rules inside and out.
Yeah, it's not just a nice-to-have. It's arguably essential to make sure your offer and the whole process goes smoothly. You need someone who navigates this regularly.
Okay, that makes sense. So that covers the big regulatory piece. Let's pivot to the money side. Point two, taxes and other closing costs here on PEI.
Right. Like most places, PEI has a property transfer tax. The standard rate for the real property transfer tax is currently 1%.
1% of what exactly?
It's 1% of the greater of either the purchase price or the property's assessed value.
Got it.
Now, there is some good news for some first-time homebuyers under the current rules. If the property value and the purchase price are both below $200,000, and it's going to be your main home.
Your primary residence.
Exactly. Then you're currently exempt from that 1% transfer tax altogether.
Okay, $200 K threshold for the exemption. Good to know. Beyond the transfer tax, what other sort of PEI-specific costs might pop up on a closing statement?
Good question. There are definitely a few common ones tied to the island context. Water tests are a big one.
Because of wells being so common?
Precisely. Well, water is very common outside the main towns, so you absolutely need to know the quality and the quantity of the water source you'll be relying on. That's crucial.
Makes sense. What else?
You'll often see adjustments for heating oil or propane. If the seller leaves fuel in the tank, you typically pay them for that remaining amount at closing. It's prorated.
Right, fair enough.
And if the property isn't on the municipal sewer system, which is common rurally, a septic system inspection is another really vital expense to plan for. You need confirmation that system is working properly before you buy.
Okay, checks out. Let's move from costs to, well, characteristics. Number 3 on the list is that classic real estate mantra, location, location, location. But you said earlier, even on a small island like PEI, Location makes a big difference, right?
Absolutely. You really can't paint the whole island with the same brush. Charlottetown obviously is the capital, the main urban hub. Culture, amenities, it's all there. And as you'd expect, that generally means higher property prices because of the demand.
And then there's Summerside.
Summerside, yeah, the second largest city. It offers a lot of amenities too. It's growing, and often you'll find slightly more affordable options there compared to Charlottetown.
Okay, cities versus... What about rural PEI? What's the trade-off there?
Well, connecting back to that island character we talked about, rural areas offer a totally different vibe. The appeal is often, more land, peace and quiet, and potentially lower price points, though not always.
But the flip side.
The flip side is definitely that reliance on well water and septic systems we just discussed. They require ongoing maintenance. Plus, you're driving further for things like major supermarkets, the hospital, specific kinds of shopping.
Gotcha. And what about those dreamy coastal properties? They must have their own unique list of pros and cons.
Oh, they certainly do. The views, the water access, that's the undeniable draw. But the challenges are significant, particularly coastal erosion. That is a very real and ongoing concern here on the island.
Right, erosion. You mentioned something called a coastal hazard assessment. What exactly is that?
Good question. A CHA, or Coastal Hazard Assessment, is basically a study, usually done by an environmental professional. It assesses the risk of erosion, storm surge, or other coastal hazards on that specific piece of land. It helps you understand the potential long-term impacts.
So it tells you how vulnerable the property might be.
Exactly. It's highly recommended and sometimes even required by lenders or for permits, especially for properties in known hazard zones.
It makes total sense. And I'd guess insurance might be higher for waterfront, too.
Often, yes. Insurers definitely factor in those coastal risks.
And one last location thing: commutes. Even on a small island.
Believe it or not, yes. Especially around Charlottetown and Summerside during peak morning and afternoon times, traffic can be a factor. It's something to consider when you're choosing where to live relative to where you work or need to go regularly.
Good point. Okay, moving on to the market itself. Number 4. Digging into PEI housing market trends, affordability, and, well, what buyers should expect right now.
Yeah, PEI's market dynamics are pretty unique. A big driver is the fact that it's currently the fastest growing province in Canada, population-wise.
Right, I've heard that. That must put pressure on housing.
Huge pressure, significant pressure on housing supply across the board.
So even if prices look lower than, say, Toronto or Vancouver.
Right. While they might seem more accessible on the surface compared to major Canadian cities, the competition for desirable properties can still be really intense. It's that strong demand hitting often limited inventory.
Mike's insights mentioned average home prices. Where are they sitting roughly?
The ballpark figure across the island for all property types combined is currently somewhere around the $400,000 mark. But, as we just talked about with location, that's just an average. Prices swing quite a bit depending on city, rural, coastal, conditions, size, all those factors.
Sure, averages only tell part of the story. What about interest rates? Always a massive factor for buyers.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone's watching interest rates. Forecasts like the one from RBC suggesting we might see slightly lower rates by, say, the third quarter of 2025. Buyers are definitely keeping a close eye on those. Lower rates could certainly boost affordability a bit and maybe spur more market activity.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Number 5 is crucial, especially for families. Schools and education on PEI.
A very important consideration. The public school system here is structured by districts. So when you're looking at houses, it's vital to check which school district and which specific schools that address is zoned for. It can impact property value and desirability too.
And what about French language options?
PEI offers choices there. You've got French immersion programs within the English public system and also dedicated Francophone schools run by the French language school board.
Good to know. And higher education.
PEI is home to the University of PEI, UPEI. It's well regarded, especially for undergraduate programs, and it has the Atlantic Veterinary College, which is highly respected.
And for trades or vocational training.
Holland College is the main provider for that, with various campuses and programs across the island offering practical skills training.
So thinking about location again, if you have kids or plan to, proximity to the right schools is a really big piece of that decision puzzle.
Absolutely. It's often a top priority for families.
All right, next up, number 6. Another vital service for anyone moving here. Healthcare in PEI and accessing services.
Right. First step for any new resident is applying for your PEI health card. Eligibility is generally based on your legal status in Canada and proving you intend to make PEI your permanent home.
And getting coverage.
Mm.
How soon does that happen? I've heard PEI might be different.
It can be. What's crucial and a potential positive compared to some other provinces is that many newcomers are actually eligible for health coverage from their first day of residency. Though, the specifics can vary based on your situation, so always best to check directly with Health PEI.
That's a significant benefit, day one coverage potentially.
Right.
But
IRAC.
finding a family doctor can be a challenge.
That is unfortunately true for many right now. There's a shortage of primary care providers, so finding a family doctor or a nurse practitioner often involves a wait. You need to register on the patient registry. That's the official centralized waiting list. Getting your name on that list as soon as you're eligible is really important.
Okay, the patient registry, good tip. And general services.
Health PEI is the provincial health authority. They operate the hospitals, health centers, mental health services, addiction services, and so on across the island. And of course, knowing the 911 system for emergencies is basic but essential anywhere you live.
Right. Okay, number 7, transportation. Getting around the island once you actually live here.
Here's the reality check, plain and simple. PEI is largely a car-dependent province.
Really? That crucial.
For the most part, yes. While there are other options, having your own vehicle gives you the most flexibility and is almost essential if you live outside the main towns like Charlottetown or Summerside.
What about public transit?
There is a public bus system, T3 Transit. It serves the core areas, Charlottetown, Stratford, Cornwall, and Summerside. It's useful within those zones. And there's also a rural transit system that covers the rest of the island, but it often works on a pre-booked or demand-responsive basis. You usually need to call ahead.
Okay. Taxis or ride sharing?
Yep, options like Curry and Uride operate here, but they're mostly concentrated in and around Charlottetown and Summerside. Availability can be limited elsewhere.
And getting off the island.
The main road link is, of course, the Confederation Bridge connecting to New Brunswick. Vital piece of infrastructure. And for air travel, we have the Charlottetown Airport, YYG, with flights to major Canadian hubs like Toronto, Montreal, Halifax, and sometimes other destinations depending on the season.
Okay, good overview. Now let's talk about the actual buildings. Number 8 gets into specific property types and those unique PEI considerations we touched on.
Right, it's more than just choosing between a house or a condo here. We've already hit on well water and septic systems pretty hard.
Yeah, sounds like a recurring theme for rural properties.
It is super common. So again, emphasizing the need for thorough inspections, water potability, water quantity tests, septic inspections, and understanding the ongoing maintenance they require.
And for waterfront, that coastal erosion issue.
Exactly. That specific PEI concern. Understanding the risk, maybe getting that coastal hazard assessment done is just critical due diligence for those properties.
What about older homes? PEI has a lot of charming historic houses, right?
So many. Full of character. But that charm can sometimes hide potential issues. Think older wiring, maybe less insulation than modern standards, potential foundation problems. It just really underlines why a thorough home inspection by someone qualified is so important, especially with older stock.
Good point. And the difference between seasonal and year-round places.
Yeah, that's key too. Some properties, especially cottages near the water, might have been built or maintained primarily for summer use. Island winters demand proper insulation, robust heating systems, and construction that can handle freeze-thaw cycles. You need to know if a place is truly suitable for year-round living.
Makes sense. And if you plan to build or renovate.
Then you'll definitely need to get familiar with the local municipal or provincial building codes and the permitting process. It varies depending on exactly where the property is located.
Right. Okay, number 9 isn't about the house itself, but about settling in, connecting with the community.
Yeah, this is a big part of the PEI appeal. The island has this well-deserved reputation for being, well, friendly and welcoming. People often comment on how easy it is to strike up conversations.
So how do newcomers tap into that?
Getting involved is key. Engage in local events. There are festivals happening all the time, especially in summer. Join community sports leagues. Maybe volunteer for a cause you care about. That's how you meet people and start to feel integrated.
And practically speaking, finding services.
Yeah, part of settling in is finding your go-to people and places. Your trusted mechanic, plumber, electrician, the local shops you like. Building that network takes a bit of time. Asking neighbors for recommendations is often a good start.
And adjusting to the rhythm of the island.
Definitely. Preparing for the distinct seasonal changes is important. Life has a different pace and different activities in the quiet, snowy beauty of winter compared to the really bustling energy of summer tourist season. Understanding and embracing that cycle is part of living here.
Good advice. Which leads us perfectly into the final point, number 10, which really seems to tie everything together.
Yes, the absolute necessity of working with a local PEI real estate professional.
We touched on this with IRAC, but it sounds like their value goes way beyond that.
Oh, absolutely. They are your essential guide through this whole unique landscape we've been discussing. A good local realtor isn't just finding you listings. They're helping you navigate the entire PEI context.
So specifically, how do they help with all these points we've covered?
Well, as we said, number one, navigating IRAC and the Lands Protection Act. Their experience there is invaluable. It can save you huge headaches. They also have that deep, boots on the ground knowledge of the local market nuances, specific neighborhoods, micro market trends, what's really going on beyond the headlines. Sometimes they even hear about properties before they officially list.
And connections.
Huge. They can connect you with other local professionals. You'll definitely need lawyers who understand PEI conveyancing, home inspectors familiar with local construction issues like wells and septics, mortgage brokers who know the island market. These connections are gold.
And ultimately, ensuring the deal goes through smoothly.
Exactly. They guide you through the negotiation, the due diligence period, making sure you check all the right boxes within the framework of PEI's specific rules and common practices.
So when you're interviewing potential realtors, given all this, what should you be asking them?
That's a great question. You want to probe their local expertise, ask them directly. What's your experience with IRAC applications? Have you successfully guided non-resident buyers through that process?
Okay, good one.
What else? Ask about their experience with rural properties specifically. Are you comfortable dealing with wells and septic systems? What should I look out for? And definitely ask how current they are on proposed changes. What are your thoughts on the potential new tax rules or IRAC triggers we're hearing about?
Their answers should give you a really good sense of how deep their local knowledge runs.
Precisely. It reveals if they're truly specialists in the PEI market.
Okay, so let's try and connect all these dots. We've covered a lot of ground, from regulations to septic systems. What's the big picture takeaway?
I think the big picture is that buying a home on PEI is, well, it's definitely a unique experience. It really requires you to go beyond generic real estate advice you might get elsewhere.
You're balancing that incredible island charm, the lifestyle appeal, the beauty.
Right, you're balancing all that positive stuff with some very specific, very PEI-centric things. Regulatory hurdles like IRAC, environmental factors like coastal erosion, and those unique market dynamics driven by growth and limited land.
And while doing your homework, like listening to a deep dive like this one, is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, research is key, but it's not enough on its own. That local, truly up-to-date expertise from someone who lives and breathes the PEI market, that's invaluable. It's what helps you navigate the specifics successfully and make a choice that's genuinely right for you in this particular place.
Okay, here's a final thought for you, our listener, to sort of mull over as you think about maybe making a home here. Given all this emphasis we've discussed on protecting PEI's character, its finite land base, through regulations like IRAC, does the process of buying a home here feel maybe less like just a simple transaction and perhaps a bit more like joining a community that has a kind of shared responsibility for looking after this special place?
That's an interesting way to put it. Something to definitely consider as you explore the possibilities of island life. Yeah, getting access to solid PEI-specific info like this is just so important when you're making such a big decision.
And we absolutely want to give another huge thank you to Mike Montague of RE/MAX Charlottetown. His comprehensive insights really were the foundation for this entire deep dive today.
Absolutely great information.
So if you are considering your own real estate needs and plans here on the island, we genuinely hope this encourages you to, maybe give Mike Montague a call or reach out to him. He clearly has the local expertise and guidance that can make a real difference. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the essentials of buying a home on Prince Edward Island. We really hope this conversation has helped paint a clearer picture of this unique real estate landscape.